All right, welcome back, Life Science. Today we are going to talk a little bit about seed plants more in depth, some characteristics that they have in common. But mostly I think I'm going to focus on xylem and phloem and some of the unique structures that these plants have. Now, we started this chapter talking about what is a plant? What does it take to be a plant? And we said, okay, they got to be eukaryotic, which means they have a nucleus. Inside their cell, they have a chloroplast, a cell wall, a central vacuole. Plants are producers, which means they make their own food through the process of photosynthesis. We talked about what are the adaptations, what did plants have to overcome in order to live on land, because all plants started in the water. We talked about how they had a cuticle so they wouldn't dry out, how they have a cell wall made of cellulose so that they could grow upright. And then now, because our plants are getting larger and larger and larger, how are they able to transport materials? And that was the vascular tissue. And then finally, the reproduction part. Like, when plants were in the water, those sex cells could just like swim towards each other. But now you're on land. So now you have to reproduce without water, and how they evolved with animals to carry pollen for them, or wind dispersal, or again, maybe some are still tied to water. And then finally, section 9.2 was looking at how do we classify plants? We classify them as either seedless or seeds. So they have no seeds, or they do have seeds. And with our seedless plants, we talked about the mosses, the liverworts, the hornworts. Those three don't have vascular tissues. They don't have xylem or phloem. But ferns, club mosses, and horsetails do have vascular tissue, and they are seedless still. And then we talked about seed plants, any plant that produces flowers and or a fruit. Okay, so this section is kind of dedicated more in depth for seed plants. So some characteristics of seed plants. Overview, over 300,000 species on Earth, organized into two groups, the Gymnosperms and the Angiosperms. Now, Gymnosperms, the word gymnosperm actually means naked seed. If you see a cone, so think like a spruce tree, a pine tree, that is a gymnosperm. Angiosperms are anything with flowers. Okay, so flowers, that you see, in a garden. But apple trees, they produce a flower. Okay, strawberries produce a flower. So those would be considered angiosperms. Now, all seed plants have vascular tissue, and they also have roots, stems, and leaves. Remember with the mosses, liverworts, and hornworts, they don't have true roots. They don't have true leaves. Okay, so just keep that in mind, that these are characteristics that are common in all seed plants. Vascular tissue, roots, stems, leaves. And of course, seeds. So vascular tissue. Vascular tissue is found throughout the entire plant, in the roots, the stems, and the leaves. And what it does is that it moves nutrients. It could be sugars, could be organic materials, it could be minerals, as well as water through the plant. There are two types of vascular tissue, xylem and phloem. And one way that I remember the difference between the two, because I think you're going to need to know the difference, phloem kind of starts with the f sound. So think food. Oh, wow. I am so awesome writing on my mouse pad. Food, as in sugar. So I sure hope your handwriting is way better than this. There's the R. Okay. Whew. Okay, so anyways, phloem is food or sugar. Now, xylem is water. Okay, so you should probably write water right here. But it is found, both of these vascular tissues are found throughout the entire plant. Now, I want to talk a little bit about cambium. Okay, so here's cambium. If this was a tree, or a woody dicot, or a gymnosperm, like a pine tree, and if I were to cut this tree, chop it down and take a look at the ring system, you're kind of looking at it from the top view down. So we call this a cross section. And you can see these rings here, and those rings stand for the xylem. And the phloem is on the inside of the cambium, and the cambium is the blue. Okay, layer of tissue that produces new vascular tissue and grows between the xylem and the phloem. Okay, never mind, I take that back. Phloem is blue. My bad. Phloem is blue. white is cambium, red is xylem. I should have looked at this picture first instead of trying to rely on my eyes with these lines here. All right, so just to recap, xylem is red, white is cambium, blue is phloem. And so cambium produces both xylem and phloem, and it grows in between the two. So xylem carries water, as well as dissolved nutrients, maybe minerals, from the roots up through the stem to the leaves. So xylem tends to move in an upward direction in a plant. It also provides support to a plant. There are two kinds of cells that make up xylem, the tracheids and the vessel elements. Now, tracheids are found in all vascular plants. They're just long, narrow, tapered ends. They grow end to end. They're like straw-like tubes that connect to each other. But what separates Gymnosperms from Angiosperms is a vessel element. Vessel elements are only found in flowering plants. So their diameters are a little bit greater than a tracheid. So, yeah. So a very blurry picture here. This is showing a vessel element. You can see it's really like a really fat straw, if you will. And the tracheids have tapered straws end to end. Okay, so yeah. Now this is something that's kind of cool that I found on Smart. I'm going to move it up here if I can. Okay, but it allows me to like maneuver this. This is xylem, and these are supposed to represent water, blue, and minerals that are dissolving through it. And if I just like spin this sucker, I mean, you can just look, do this. Okay, that's not really cool. But yeah, I don't know, just something that I thought was pretty cool. Anyways, phloem. Phloem, that F sound, food. Okay, dissolved sugars throughout the plant. Usually moving in a downward direction towards the roots because sugar is made where in a plant? I hope you're saying leaves. Okay, so sugar is made in the leaf of a plant and it usually moves downward to the roots for storage. Now it's made up of two cells, sieve tube elements and companion cells. So sieve tube elements are long and thin. They just form really long tubes. There might be some holes in them. These cells don't have a lot of organelles. So if you don't have a lot of organelles, tiny little organs to carry out some of the processes, you kind of need a companion cell to carry out those functions. So we have companion cells that are located right next to these sieve tube elements to help carry out or control the sieve tube cell. You know, when to divide or, you know, what kind of nutrients it needs, if it needs some energy, and so on. So the companion cells help out the sieve tube elements because they don't really have a lot of organelles. So here's a sieve tube member. Again, this is showing a cross section of a plant. So if I were to take a stem and just cut it and take a look at, you know, downward view of it, I might see something like this. And here's my companion cell with just loaded with all of these organelles, my central vacuole, and these kind of look like mitochondria. And they are connected to each other through a tiny little tunnel or a bridge called a plasmodesmata. So the companion cell helps to carry out some of the cell process for this sieve tube member cell. Okay, roots. Roots' main function is to anchor that plant and help it stay upright. And another very important function is to absorb water as well as minerals from the ground. Okay, so it sucks up water and minerals and brings it towards the plant, up towards the leaf, or wherever it needs to be needed. Wherever it is needed is what I wanted to say. Okay, so that's it for today. Your assignment is the Plant D questions, which are here, but they're also typed out on Google Classroom. And I believe, let me take a look at my calendar real quick for you, that these questions, I think I'm just going to make them due on Wednesday by 3:30 p.m. But it's just all about xylem, phloem, seed plants overall. Yeah. Okay, for this, I guess I should say for this final question, you might need to look at your book. Okay, so yeah, just warning you, you might need to look at question 6 using your book. All right, let me know if you have questions through iRemind or email, and good luck.